So, I just want to say welcome. I think it's about time we put a little bit more FaceTime on the screen here and talk to you about how we are getting this year started and some things that we'd like to really, push forward moving into this season. I think it's a bit more about how to cook this style or how to cook the way that we do in the comfort of your own home. I think having the product line that we do really supports that, and I want people to understand my process of why I've created these individual bouillons and seasonings to kind of be cheat codes for cooking in your own house and gatherings and having stuff like that, and it kind of puts you ahead of everybody else, keeping the food as simple as possible, but utilizing our bouillons for something that creates a lot more flavor and I think a lot more texture kind of going all the way through. So we are right around the corner from Easter and springtime, especially up here in the Hudson Valley. I know we are all tired of the winter and the dark days and all that stuff, so it's nice to get a little green in the air, a little sun in the sky, and get a little flavor in everybody's bellies. So we had introduced this really beautiful lamb salt that we make exclusively for Hemlock Hill Farm, and we are going to be able to kind of show our process from start to finish here. So here we have this amazing 7-pound bone-in leg of lamb from Hemlock Hill Farms, and we are going to prepare as if we're getting ready for Sunday roast or Sunday Easter. That being said, it's really about understanding that seasoning is just as important as the cooking process itself, and under seasoning things is as dramatic as under or over cooking items. I always like to kind of get my meat out and have it tempered, no pun intended, but I also like to think about how much cold air is being held within the muscles of this meat itself and having it sit at a room temperature. And literally, I personally like to season larger cuts like this almost 12 hours prior to the start of actually cooking it. We really think that the penetration of our salt mix needs to have that time to really work itself down to the bone and allows that meat to kind of tense up a little bit and secure that, that moisture that's going to be kind of cooking. We all know that salt pulls out moisture, and this is something that we want to kind of replace the moisture with the natural lamb bouillon that is in this actual salt product itself. From the beginning, I like to make sure that it is as dry as possible from either residual condensation or just the natural moisture that comes off the lamb itself. I think that starting with a nice clean base makes the product, the adhesion of the salt to our product is as important as ever. So I usually like to start from there. I like to add a few drops of just good olive oil on here, and just to give something the salt can really adhere to and stick to, because obviously as we're seasoning such a big piece and we're going to be flipping it back and forth, a lot of that excess seasoning itself and excess salt is really going to start falling all over the place. So this allows it to kind of stay in place there. The next step that I really like to do with this is just make a few tiny little incisions around, kind of getting it as close to that bone as we can, and really making sure that that salt hits right down to the center as much as possible. From there, I really like to season like I want to hurt people in the sense, because just knowing that this is going to cook for such a long period of time and so much moisture is going to come out of it, I use our seasonings as obviously a very quick approach to just using kosher salt, but also treating it like it is a rub and really massaging it into the muscle group itself just to make sure, but it also creates a little bit of moisture within this and kind of turns this dried seasoning mix into a bit of a paste. Making sure we're getting kind of into every single flap and every single section of here. Because please understand that the crust of this is going to be the main source of flavor kind of going all the way through. And as much as on the outside, it's not going to be as intense as it will be in the middle. So we really need to just make sure it's worked in. So for me, I take this out, I let it temper, I season it about 12 hours in advance. Usually I just like to leave it in the fridge overnight, all covered in salt it is. Next day, I pull it out 3 hours before cooking and let it just come up to room temperature, so it's much easier to go from there. This system works for putting it on a grill, putting it in a smoker, putting it on a roasting rack in the oven, or if you have a pan large enough to pan sear this, I would do this process all the way through. It's not so exclusive to just wood fire cooking. Let's head out to the grill. All right, so depending on your cooking process, you are essentially going to bring this over to either your stovetop, your grill, your smoker, and you're gonna wanna get a nice little crust on the outside of it. So we are working with our hardwoods here. Cherry oak and maple is the blend that we like to use for majority of our season. We find it to be great for long-term cooking, but also really high heat and searing and getting a beautiful caramelization of the natural sugars and with whatever it is for cooking. So right now our goal is to start to slowly render out this beautiful layer of fat that's on here. And you're going to get a lot of the flavors of kind of what the baseline of this salt is. You know, within this salt, we have dried lamb stock. We have our famous smoked olives, which are dehydrated. We have anchovies that are chopped, dehydrated as well. Then you have roasted garlic, a little bit of rosemary, lemon zest, a little bit of Aleppo pepper in there. So all flavors that are just going to kind of keep coming to the surface. And as we're caramelizing that, and that moisture is coming out and that fat is rendering, all of those dried herbs and dried jus are going to be hydrated and really come to life out on the crust there. So it's like having a wet marinade, but we are just kind of working with the dried bouillon itself. So it makes it more shelf stable, makes you able to kind of have it for as long as you want to use it for. But when you're using this as a process of cooking, you're really focusing on extracting as much of that flavor out as possible, but utilizing the natural juices of the lamb to make that happen. All right, so as we are getting closer to the last little moments of our lamb being roasted outside, I figured it'd be a great time to kind of talk about just a simple sauce that we like to use a lot here in Woodfire Food, but also a sauce that can utilize other elements of our products that you may already have in your home. We are going to combine some scallions, chopped parsley, our smoked olives, a little bit of Aleppo pepper, a little bit of nigella seed, which is a toasted onion seed, and then finishing off seasoning it with a little lemon zest, lemon juice, and then obviously the lamb salt to kind of bring everything full circle. You know, like as you're making this at home, don't over-process it, don't overthink it. Obviously, I've been in the kitchen a lot longer than a majority of people, but I think it's also good to see the perspective of how we look at the approach to food and how it can be really replicated in home, and it doesn't have to be to the exact precision of what we're doing, but the flavor profile is still there. So we're just going to chop down this parsley real quick. I like to just rip the stems at the base. I'm not opposed to having little stems in there. It's part of the flavor of the parsley. We want to chop it as fine as we possibly can, even utilizing this in a food processor if you have that at home for yourself to make that easier. You know, use what you have. These are all just kind of ideas and concepts of the how to get to the same similar position. So right now I'm just working the knife through the parsley. What I always like to tell our cooks is as we're making these salsa verdes or any of the sauces we make with herb bases, you want to have the parsley chopped fine enough that you're not eating a wet salad, you're just eating a sauce that has herbs in it. So try to chop down as much as you can. Don't look for perfection because that doesn't exist in this day and age anyway. Just do what feels right for you. I think that is really, you know, the thing that people overcomplicate when it comes to food. Food is just about a memory. It's about a feeling. It's about what makes sense in there. Technique is one thing, but when you're cooking in really simple formats, don't overthink it because it's not worth it. Get that scraped up. Next, we're going to put in just a couple green onion tops. Just have a little bit of allium going on in there. And I don't want to overcomplicate this sauce as saying before because that lamb and that seasoning that we have in there already has the garlic in it, already has the additional spices like rosemary, so you don't want to double up on everything. Next, we're going to go a little bit of lemon zest before the juice. And for one bunch of parsley, you're pretty much going to use the zest of one whole lemon, and then use that same lemon for your juice. But I like to put all of the acid in the end of my sauce to keep it as green as possible for as long as I can. Sit over there and wait for a little bit. We'll add our spices. Good tablespoon of Aleppo pepper. Good tablespoon of Nigella seed. And then lastly, we'll do about 6 to 8 olives. I like to use some of the residual oil in the jar. Just going to add a nice little smoky flavor on top of what we're already doing. And then from that, I just kind of like to use the side of the knife, just smash them down a little bit. Just makes it easier for you to process them so you're not chasing olives all over your cutting board. Take your lemon, just whack it right in half. Just a squeeze of 1 whole lemon. And then I have to do a couple dashes of red wine vinegar in there. Just give that a nice mix through. Notice how I haven't added any seasoning to this yet as far as salt goes. I like to put my oil in first to see what kind of balance we have and then adjust my seasoning from there. A couple glugs of high quality olive oil. Always try to use something that's like unfiltered or just straight olive oil, nothing that is a blend of other oils. This way you just have a nice clean flavor kind of going all the way through. And then from there I will adjust the seasoning. Always just start with a little bit. You can always add more. It gets really complicated to try to take it out after the fact. A little more salt. Keep in mind that dried herbs and dried anchovies and lamb is all going to rehydrate in this liquid. So give it some time and keep tasting it. Usually I like to make this right before we pull the lamb off or out of the oven, and as it's resting, let this kind of bloom, and then we'll adjust it one more time right before we go to the plate. All right, so as we were talking about before is when you are utilizing this lamb salt itself, it's going to naturally just adhere to the juices that are on there, and it's going to create this really awesome like crust, crunchy, salty, delicious, and it kind of coats the entire side of it. You have that natural coloring from the lamb jus itself. Obviously, there's coloring from smoke there, but here you have a product that is, lamb seasoned and lamb. You can't really go wrong with that. And just from a visual standpoint of view, it's kind of like everything you're looking for caramelization-wise, from the fat to the actual protein itself, just looking delicious. All right, so as we wait for our beautiful lamb leg to rest and let all those juices kind of go back to the center of the meat instead of pouring all over it, resting is, I would say, and I think a lot of chefs would also say, that it is just as important as the cooking process. The time that you put into seasoning, cooking, and adjusting should be the same amount of time that you put into the resting of the product that you're cooking. So that being said, let's make a really beautiful, simple spring salad that'll be great on the side of your lamb. And we can do this literally in the same amount of time that it'll take for this lamb to rest properly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a really awesome charred and raw snap pea salad with smoked olives, brown butter, and chili honey over the top of some fresh burrata. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prep our snap peas. I think for a dish of 4 guests, you're going to want to use probably 2 dozen snap peas. And just a really simple process of just cutting off the edges so that you're left with just a nice little block like this. Snap peas are great this time of year because they're just full of life, they're full of moisture, they're full of freshness. And then being able to have half of the mix that we're doing for the salad charred, which is going to make them more caramelized, a little bit more sweeter, a little bit more decadent, and then match that with the fresh, crunchy snap peas adds a really great textural experience to the eating of this dish, but also adds another layer of flavor that guests are going to kind of be asking, how did you come up with this, or how did you think of this? And you don't have to have a wood-fired grill to really make this happen. You could just use a really hot saute pan. And we're going to treat these snap peas just like they are the lamb, or just like they are a piece of meat. We're going to sear them super hard on one side and then let them carry over and rest so that residual heat from the searing just carries them through where they still have some texture, but they're not soft, but they also aren't fully raw anymore either. So So I like to preheat my pan just to a medium-high heat here. Dry. I don't put any oil in there because what's going to happen if you put oil in early, it's going to smoke really fast while you're sitting here prepping it, and then it'll end up, causing the fire alarm to go off, which always is enjoyable when you have a room full of people just waiting to eat. So quickly, we are just going to toss half of this mixture right in a mixing bowl here. And here you kind of have an option of what you want to season this with. So my brain automatically says that I want to season this with the lamb salt that we're obviously working on today. But obviously, if you are a follower of ours, we have our roasted vegetable salt, which is a really great option to kind of choose from. And you're going to season this just as if you're going to go right to the pan with it. Don't go light on it. Be a little bit more aggressive with it because the other half of this you're not going to season either. So a little bit of oil, a little bit of the roasted vegetable salt. Tossed in, ready to go. And we'll set this off to the side as that pan gets nice and hot for us. This is a really great lunch item. This is really great to, just as I said, if you have a short amount of time in between setting and prepping and resting what's next, you can put this together really quickly. We'll put all of our raw pieces in here. And then we're going to slice our olives, our wood fire food smoked olives here, just into nice thin coins. And for this, you're probably going to need 3 or 4 olives. All right, we're going to head over to our stove here. I always just like to carry my hand above this pan. Your hands are a really great indicator of how hot things are. And you want this to be uncomfortable for your hand to sit above it. And then all we're going to do is just slide this in here. And you can hear the instant sizzle as soon as we go in. I like to put another layer of oil in there, and you see that smoke happening right away. And just let that sit, and you're going to char those until they're almost blackened on one side. All right, while that's charring, we can actually just start building our dish from there. So here we have a really beautiful ball of burrata. I like to just kind of split that open. Let that just chill out there. Use the back of a spoon and just kind of create a little divot in there. Obviously, if you're serving more than multiple guests, you're going to use multiple balls on the plate there. I immediately like to season this with some black pepper, some large flake sea salt, and just hit this with a little bit of that olive oil. So now your cheese is properly marinated and seasoned, and then you can go ahead and build your salad on top of that. Just give these a quick little look. This is all done here, so it's a really, really quick process. Those will just go right in a bowl. We take our hot peas, we take our cold peas, we take a little bit of our sliced olives. Let's give that a quick mix. I like to do a little bit of lemon juice in here, just for some natural sweetness and some natural acidity. And I like to do a couple shots of just white wine vinegar. Really to invoke some flavor in there, I like to just throw the mint right into this mix right here. Don't worry about it being perfect leaves. We'll garnish with some on the back end. But just tear these. And this way that nice freshness is kind of mixed all throughout the dish. Lastly, not everybody's going to have this, but we use a lot of fennel pollen, which is something you can pick up. You can order online. Fennel pollen just comes directly from the flower of the fennel plant itself, so it's very aromatic. And I like to do a little bit of Aleppo pepper in there. Give that a quick toss. And then literally we can just go right to the plate with this. Every time I am adding peas to the dish, I'm kind of pressing the cheese down a little bit more so it just covers more area. Put that off to the side. I like to do 1 second layer of Maldon salt on this. I like to season in stages instead of trying to do everything at once. It just it allows every single bite to be slightly different, and you're always experiencing something brand new every time you go back into the dish. From here, I like to add a little additional sweetness. In-house, we always are using some sort of chili honey that we make, and I just kind of lightly drizzle that over the top. It's going to add a little heat, a little sweetness. And then this is our famous brown butter solids that we make here at Woodfire Food. You can essentially make brown butter. You can strain off that residual clarified butter, and you're just left with your fried solids from there. I like to put just a little bit over the top. It adds some nuttiness, adds a little texture to the dish, and also makes it so you are experiencing that a little bit butter on top of more cheese and dairy. You know, anything worth doing is really worth overdoing. So I just like to pick a couple leaves there for garnish. And then the last thing, which adds just a little pop of heat to it, kind of across the board, is just utilizing a little bit of chili oil. And that is a super fast, super fresh, great salad to have for Easter. Here we have charred snap peas, smoked olives, brown butter, and a little bit of chili honey on top of fresh handmade burrata. All right, so here we have our beautiful roasted leg of lamb. If it's coming out of the oven, coming off the grill, coming off the smoker, you know, it should have had a two hour long cooking process, about 40 minutes of resting. And now we're just kind of break it into the primal. It all depends on how you guys are presenting this. Sometimes we like to present that on the bone first at the table and then come back and slice it. Or if you're cooking it boneless, you can just go right to slicing from there. So I just like to break it into its primal cuts instead of trying to carve around the bone. All right, let this sit off to the side here. And you kind of want to have a piece that has that crust on all sides of it, so you're able to get the full experience all the way through. And now keep in mind that we are working with a primal cut that has multiple muscle groups kind of working around it. So I like to keep things as thin as I possibly can. And always carve a little snack for yourself on the side, because we deserve it. That's fucking really good. God damn it. Okay. So from here, I just like to take a serving plate, put that right in the center there, fan that out, show off that really awesome medium cook all the way through. And see how little liquid kind of came out of that and how it's not bleeding all over the place. That resting process is the most important part. If I was home cooking for my own family, from this point, I would take our red wine salt and kind of grace it over the top. Come back in, check on our smoked olive salsa verde. Add a little bit more lemon to that. Seasoning is great. You could already pick up the flavors of the anchovy, pick up the flavors of the smoked olive in there, and the lamb itself. And then you want to just kind of dress this and let it cascade down the side. You don't want to overcomplicate this, but you also want people to see how hard you worked on the cook. And by covering up the whole thing just in sauce, doesn't really go from there. And there is that beautiful roasted leg of lamb. I'd eat the fuck out of this. Yeah, so I think it's pretty easy to see that, you know, obviously if you present this to your family members, your friends that are kind of staying over for the Easter season or any holiday season coming up, It's springtime, you know, like let's focus on the product that's really great right now. We're super proud of our lamb salt that we've created. And I think that having the upper hand and not having to complicate all the dry rubs and mixes and spices and just being able to buy one product that'll make you seem that you are so far beyond your cooking technique than you actually may be, I think is a great opportunity to kind of go from there. My thought behind all of the salts we make and kind of everything that we do is like, let me do all the hard work and really focus on you guys just selling and giving and serving really simple, beautiful food. So I hope you guys really enjoy this product. I hope to see all of the individual dishes that you guys come up with. And I look forward to actually taking you a bit more into this kitchen and showing you my thought process of how to present the food and how to cook the food that everybody has been following and seeing for the 6.5 years we've been doing this. I look forward to kind of seeing you all around the fire.